Nice to be with you for Wednesday's edition of Footy Talk. Of course, it's done a little bit differently on a Wednesday. We look at the world from a player's point of view. We give you the insights into what it's like to be behind the headlines and what is actually going on and being spoken about at Clubland. I'm Jack Heverin. Always nice to see Abbey Holmes. She's the queen of Channel 7. She can now paint a deck. She can renovate a house. You're unreal.
Oh, mate, it's been a very busy few weeks in the Holmes-Brooksby household, but we're getting there. And as we know, there is always so many, hot topics and news to chat about on a Wednesday. So excited to be in here with you.
Renovator's delight. David Zaharakis, the man, the machine. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jack. How you going?
Excellent. What's the latest fitness program for you?
I'm off to America next Wednesday to go to Boulder, Colorado, and to do a half Ironman over there. So I'm looking forward to getting over there and getting some sun because it is quite cold training in the morning and 5 degrees at 5 a.m. at the moment. So
absolute madness.
Madness. Do you know what is funny? Before Zaka started on his Ironman journey, 4 a.m. was unheard of for this guy.
6 a.m. was unheard of.
6 a.m. was unheard of. And now all of a sudden I check him out on Zaka11, go hit him up on Instagram, and he is running laps and cycling 100 million kilometres at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. It's crazy.
I reckon when I played footy, I got up at 7. We started at 8 at the footy club, and I did not know a time that existed before 7. That was my time. I had to get up at 7 a.m. and I thought that was early. And then now it's just 4:30 on the daily.
Just easy money for you too, isn't it?
Interesting how the mind changes.
Yeah.
Let's start our Wednesday show with our thoughts of the week. We're sort of in hump day, so we've had a bit of a chance to take in what's gone on in the week so far. Abs?
Well, mine comes off the back of Craig McRae yesterday and speaking about the injury plague that has hit the AFL league-wide, right? So I think, Pies have 14 unavailable this week. Richmond leads the way. They've got 18 players unavailable through injury. Carlton have 14 unavailable as well. St Kilda only the 2, so that's the other end of the spectrum.
Probably a bit worrying that they're not going well and they've got 2 players out.
But Craig's comments around, this is something that we probably do need to address. There's 159 injuries league-wide. Like that is a fair chunk of the competition. And what is it? Is it scheduling? Is it the length of games? Is it times of games? Some clubs are hit, obviously, more than others. But is it your high-performance team that you need to address this with, or what is it? Because 159 league-wide, that's too many.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I was talking to a club doctor recently about this, and the AFL's changed so much in the last 20 years where it's so much more explosive than what it used to be. And back in the old day, it was a 21-day hamstring. You'd come back and because it was a bit of not slower game, but it was more of a one-pace style of football. Now, with athletes, with strength and conditioning coach, the game is so explosive that the old 21-day hamstring or 28-day quad and all that, the players coming back on that time frame, you are so much more susceptible nowadays to reoccurrence and re-injury. I know clubs now are basically scanning twice. So at the start of the injury and then basically when they come back, the player's almost ready to play again. Purely the fact that the demands of footy right now are so high. So whether you do need to adjust potentially the game time or more rotations on the bench or 5 or 6 players on the bench, whatever it may be. But I just know the demands in that time frame have changed from, all right, 21 days are up, get the player back out there and ready to play. It is now, I think we need to look at those traditional timeframes of injuries. Do they need to be expanded a bit more? Because, you got players coming back and just exploding straight away, especially in training and all that, especially with calves, quads, hammies, injuries that require a fair bit of time on the sideline and a bit of rehab. I don't know. That's just the thought that a club doc was saying.
The game has changed so much.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more games, more weeks, more rounds as they start to evolve. Do we need to look at list sizes again? Do we need to go back to adding an extra 2 or 3 to the list? Or, I know we've spoken about it a bit on this show. Should you be able to pick up anyone at any time out of the VFL or the SANFL or something like that?
Well, you look at Richmond in, isolation here. They're almost hitting top-up territory, aren't they? And, they're getting to the point where they potentially have 23 available, and that is it. So maybe we could look at, expanding list sizes just to have a few more options on the list. I don't know, but...
Are you available?
Oh,
Weren't you a top-up player for Melbourne?
Oh, well, yeah. The old phone call. Yeah, I'll do that. No worries. Are you a fan of potentially having less rotations to try and slow the game down so it's less high speed and just more open flow? Because I know that's been spoken about as potentially causing less injuries because the game's a lot slower and players are more that. Or
But we don't want a slower game.
we don't
do
want
we?
no.
It's exciting. Like it's electric.
Yep.
You want the excitement and I don't know, just the speed that is the game of AFL football. I think that's what makes it so great. So I certainly don't want it to slow down.
So potentially maybe 2 minutes left. I know that 18 minutes has been thrown around. Potentially that's another, 8 minutes of playing time, 15 minutes out in the ground less, and then hopefully the same amount. I know because I know AFL obviously with more teams, they're going to end up playing 25, 26, 27, 28 games in the future.
That's why I ask about the list.
So that's
there's more games coming.
But we're going to have 2 more teams.
Yeah.
I don't think the talent pool is good enough in Australia yet to have bigger list sizes and now another 2. So 90 more players are going to be on the list. Plus then if you add on it more, it could be 150 players. I don't think the talent pool's there yet, but it is... Yeah, it's a conundrum in the AFL that we kind of have to work out.
But look at what's happening with the AFLW, right? They've gone from 8 teams through to 18 teams quite quickly. And exactly right. The talent hasn't necessarily been there as they've expanded, but it catches up. It certainly does. So, I don't know. It's something that the AFL will be looking at.
It's a deep thought of the week to start
You like
from you.
that?
It's a good
Really
one. I
like
can
that.
tell you've been
Great.
marinating on that one for a couple of days. Zaka, what about you?
My thought of the week is the AFL has evolved and the work-life balance has evolved so much that now players are missing games through family functions. I know Ed Langdon on the weekend with his sister's wedding missed a game. I know it got brought in when Woosha coached Essendon. We were able to, and I wouldn't say we weren't able to before that, but it was more openly spoken about. Yep, if you have a family function, you can either miss a training session, a main training session, or a couple of days in pre-season. Whatever. I don't think we had players that missed games, but I knew it was coming in that more work-life balance or family balance that if you had a function on, you could definitely miss a part of your football schedule. I don't know, when you were playing Abs, was it similar to that?
Look, I think, and just to add on to this wasn't his sister's wedding down the road. This was his sister's wedding in London too. So an overseas trip, which extends the travel time and whatnot. This certainly would have been something that Ed Langdon went to the club as soon as, he got the invite from his sister, as soon as the date was floated and said, I need to be here. I know as a player, like you do sacrifice, you miss 21st, you miss 18th, you miss weddings, you miss family functions. That's just something that you do and you sacrifice when your world is being an athlete. But I would put my hand up straight away right now and say I would never miss my sister's wedding.
Totally.
Yep.
So good on Ed Langdon. He's obviously worked through this with the football club and been given the time off to go over there and be there. And I would never, no matter what my role is, no matter, what part of the season I'm in, I would never miss my sister's wedding.
Yep. Well, it's like with the players with their wives having a baby and obviously they've got to make the call whether they miss it or not. Everyone has their own personal preferences on that. I remember when it was Woosh's one of the first years, Luke Shuey had his engagement party over in Perth and obviously John coached him and I said I'm going to go over there for his engagement party and I was missing a crucial Saturday pre-season session and Woosh was more than happy to do it and said, yeah, mate, like one of your best friends, go over there and enjoy that and then just come back and train.
But isn't it funny that even the way you just said that then, missed a crucial Saturday session.
Yeah.
Like in the scheme of life, how crucial is one session?
Well, exactly.
And
That's
this
right.
is where things are changing,
and
to your point.
You're right. And this is, it's that thought process in the head. Yes, one session or one game in the concept of 23, 24 games of the year isn't relevant.
And you know that Ed Langdon is doing everything that he possibly can whilst he's away from the four walls of the football club.
Yep.
You've got to, how long's the flight to London?
18
18-hour flight, right? So he's up and down the corridor, walking. He's got compression on. He's getting off the plane. He's stretching. He's doing a running session. He is absolutely, 100% that he is doing everything right.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's funny because Dale Thomas, our great friend, is wandering the corridors here
Being
in
a
the
nuisance.
studios. And Jack, you posed the question to him. What do you think Mick Malthouse would have said to you, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you wanted to go to your sister's wedding in London?
Yep.
And Dale turned around and said, he would have said, I'll help you. I'll buy you a one-way ticket. Don't come back. But times have changed so much. There's so much more emphasis on the mental health of players and the work-life balance aspect of AFL football and life.
Yep.
While AFL is important, sport is important, it is not everything.
It's
and
not.
I think society and especially players are realising that, and clubs are realising that it isn't everything. It's yes, what we do and we get paid well to do, but
Yep.
sport is not everything in life.
And we're seeing it in other sports. Mitch Marsh went home from a recent Australian tour because
Yes.
his grandma or grandpa, forgive me for not knowing, but a relative passed, so he went back for the
Yep.
funeral. I'm not sure that would have happened 15 years ago
Yeah.
either. So life is definitely evolving.
What is your thought of the week?
I don't want to spend too long on this because it doesn't deserve to spend long on it. But Taron Thomas is in the news again. That's in front of police, and that will play out.
Yeah.
I'm always a believer in innocent until proven guilty, so I won't put him out there and just suggest that he is already guilty. But I'll let that play out. What I'm saying now is, as an industry, that includes us, everyone. I know the AFL put the statement out yesterday to say that until such time that the investigation is finished, that they won't be giving him a permit to play Australian rules at any level. I'm saying now as an industry, we need to put him aside and let that play out. No more who would Taron Thomas fit best. No more this club's interested in all that sort of stuff. He needs to be left alone, full stop. And I say that again with the knowledge that you've got to let these things play out. But I'm sure that these articles about which club would Taron Thomas fit best, they click well and they might listen well, but for now he needs to be put aside, and I don't think any more spotlight needs to be shined on him in any form of positive light.
I 110% agree with you. And we, within, the AFL industry and the media landscape, we have a responsibility as well with a number of, issues within society. And once again, we're not going to comment on Taron Thomas here because it is a legal matter, but domestic violence against women, anything in that realm is something that we need to stamp out. We've got to put our foot down. And here is a player who has been given a number of opportunities. He's been given education processes to try and work around certain aspects of his life. And if this has been another mistake made, then 100%. And it has been quite frustrating over the last few weeks to hear the conversation and the language around Taron Thomas just being able to potentially walk back into the AFL system as a a woman myself, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. But I know that people change and people make mistakes and we evolve as humans each and every day, but if this is something that he's gone back and done again, then absolutely there should be zero more conversation about this person, this player, re-entering the AFL system.
Yeah, who he plays for is not more important or above the outcome and the process, what happens here. So we need to stop, like you said, stop asking coaches in press conferences, do you think we could fit? Stop writing articles.
Yeah.
Because that is not more important than letting the process happen and then whatever outcome happens there. Because there are people involved here. There's all sorts of legal matters, whatever. But football is not more important than that going on.
And that needs to come down to everybody, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And media, as you just said, press conferences, journalists going there, just stop asking those questions until this matter does play out.
Yep. Then you can ask as many questions you want after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but not before.
And I just want to reiterate, innocent until proven guilty. I'm
100%.
such a believer in that. And,
Yep.
you only have to look back to the Alistair Clarkson, Chris Fagan situation that a lot of people put them out on the dryer before anything had even played out. So let those in charge take care of those things. But in the meantime, let that play out and he stays over there and no more to be said about it from here. It's been a heavy show to start with.
Ooh,
it
hasn't it?
doesn't get much lighter because Luke Parker went to the VFL
Oh,
tribunal
my
last night and has received a heavy, heavy sanction to the tune of 6 weeks. Wow, it's a big number, and it's going to take Luke Parker to round 18 before he's available for a senior selection.
Things have just gone from pretty bad to much worse for Luke Parker, because you look at the Sydney Swans, they are flying at the moment, sitting 2 games clear on top of the ladder. He, of course, broke his hand. Was
Arm.
it arm? Broke his arm in the preseason, is back available playing VFL footy, because what that Sydney midfield group is doing, there is no place for him at the moment. So to think that he was working his way back into form, getting his match fitness up in the VFL, Horse Longmire's come out and said he's itching at the bit to play senior footy. He doesn't want to be running around in the VFL. Who does when you're on an AFL list? But now to think that he is out of contention for 6 weeks, you've got to think as well, Swans still have their captain to come back into in Callum Mills very, very soon, which is exciting. You don't want to be going out of this side at the moment. And you look at Robbie Fox with his, shoulder injury on the weekend. This team is flying. I was sitting there on the boundary on the weekend thinking, which of the other 17 sides in the competition has what it takes to combat this team at the moment? Number one offense, number one defense, what their midfield is doing. But from an internal point of view, you don't want to fall out of that side. And now for Luke Parker, out for 6 weeks, he then needs to build, back into that match fitness and essentially start again. Heartbreaking for him, but when you look at, I guess, the incident in isolation, I don't think 6 weeks was there. He certainly needed to get a ban. I would have probably thought maybe 3 to 4.
Yeah, Luke, I just want to put it out there first. Luke is not a dirty player.
Oh, God,
absolutely
no.
not.
Absolutely
but
not.
he does not take a backward step in being physical to the opposition, whether that's, verbally or physically, it goes to the opposition. That's how I played against him. You always knew or had to be aware of where Luke was around a contest because you knew he could bump you, whatever. I still think looking at the incident in isolation, he didn't need to do what he did. That's me personally looking at it. The player was trailing the play and Luke's chosen to step across the line and bump him. And when you do decide to bump like that with that much force, you're then responsible for the outcome of the play. And the player's broken cheekbone, eye socket, jaw.
It's not great. Heavy concussion.
Heavy concussion. So Luke had chosen that moment that he had a duty of care, and he chose that moment to do that and be physical, which fine, be physical. But then the outcome was you've destroyed the player's face, and it doesn't look great. So I think, you said 3 to anywhere from 3, 4, 5. I think the 6 is potentially justified, just purely for the fact he didn't need to do it, stepped across the line, and the outcome was brutal.
So let me pose this question to you then. As I say, round 18 is when he's going to be next available. Let's say that he has 1 or 2 in the VFL just to get himself going again. So we're at finals time.
Yep.
Sydney coaching group are in a big room and they're looking at their first final. They're probably going to have a double chance by that stage. Does Luke Parker's magnet get moved into the senior side because he is the sort of guy that you would just go to war with, regardless of how much or how little he's played?
Sydney have played in 23 of the last 28 final series. That is remarkable. Luke Parker is one of the most experienced campaigners that you could have on an AFL list. So it's quite, I guess, comforting, isn't it, for the Sydney coaching group to know that they've got Luke Parker waiting in the wings should, obviously they be in a really strong position still come finals time. But once again, it comes down to injuries, first and foremost at the Swans, if they cop any over the next, 10 weeks or so, 11 weeks. But imagine having Luke Parker as your sub.
If I was picking a team...
Imagine.
If you asked me to pick a team for a final based purely on players that you'd go to war with, he'd be one of the first I'd pick every day of the week.
Absolutely. But it is, it's quite remarkable what this midfield group is doing. Yep. So you cannot question that.
Someone's going to be very stiff at the end of the year if they make that
There's
call.
There's so many heartbreaking stories when finals roll around.
Don't get injured late in the
year. Little calf or something. Yep. But every team, you're right, every team has a heartbreak story.
Yeah.
And
it
seems
Holmes.
like we're tracking that way towards Sydney where, Luke Parker will miss majority of the season. But how do you pick against him in a finals campaign? Whether it's a prelim, qualifying final, whatever it is. But I agree with both of you. I don't think you could not pick him. I think you have to, purely for how physical he is. I know we're speaking about he's bumped whatever, but how physical he can be, his experience in the finals, what he drives from that team. But someone will be very stiff.
Plenty more to come here on Footy Talk. On the other side of this, there are 50-50 games littered across round 11. We're going to talk about a couple of those. And yes, Abby wants to talk about Harley Reid. That's all coming up on Footy Talk. Of course, if you're listening on Spotify, hit the bell to be notified when we drop a new episode. Great to have you with us on Footy Talk. If you want to get involved with us, it is a very, very easy thing to do. You can send us a message on Instagram at @FootyTalk_pod. David Zaharakis, Abbey Holmes and Jack Heverin for your Wednesday edition. 50-50 games all across this round, and it starts tomorrow night with the Bulldogs and the Swans. This is a very good round of footy on paper.
Isn't it? Round 11 already, can you believe it? The second week of Sir Doug Nicholls' Indigenous round, of course. Dreamtime at the G is on Saturday night, which we're all so excited for. But it all kicks off tomorrow night at Marvel Stadium, and this is the biggest of the big tests for the Western Bulldogs for season 2024.
Yep.
None other than Sydney Swans, the top of the ladder, of course, but they need to show us tomorrow night what they're capable of, the Dogs. They've got such a talented list across the board, and there's no bigger test in the game, but they've had such an inconsistent season. They're starting to find the groove, the Dogs, and I just think tomorrow we just need to see exactly what they're capable of.
We do, and I love Sam Darcy, by the way, watching
Oh,
him play.
yes.
208 centimetre.
He's brilliant.
He is brilliant, and yeah, watch him for the next 10 to 15 years. But you're right, like the Doggies now have won 2 in a row. Great win, go up to Sydney, beat the Giants, who obviously are struggling, but beat the Giants. Now you come back to your home deck, Marvel, on a Thursday night. Put on a show. That's what we want to see. Because yes, Sydney are flying. We know they're going to turn up and play great footy. Western Bulldogs, you need to turn up and play great footy. But that's why I reckon this is such a great round, especially kicking off with this. Because you've got the Doggies at home against Sydney. That's a genuine 50-50, I believe.
Yep.
Then we've got Freo Collingwood. You spoke about the amount of injuries that Collingwood have, but they turn up and play in close games every time they play.
A couple of debutants too. Which is
A couple of
exciting.
debutants. Then you got Carlton Gold Coast. Gold Coast need to win away from home. They
Definitely.
need to win away from home to prove to everyone in the AFL landscape they're there. Geelong, Jerry West, 2 very struggling teams at the moment. Geelong could lose 4 in a row.
A month ago, this would have been the best game of the round by
Totally.
a long way.
By a
Things
long
have changed,
way.
haven't
Yes,
they? Yeah.
Exactly. And then your boy on Sunday afternoon, which I think is
let her loose. Come
is
on.
going to be another cracking game.
Look,
Adelaide West Coast.
Well, I'm an Adelaide girl, as we all know here at Footy Talk, so I hope that Harley Reid has an absolute stinker on that. But based on what we've seen from him across, the start of his career, Jay Clark, actually, I said I'm obsessed with Harley Reid. He said, how obsessed? I am Nick Carter, Backstreet Boys, kind of, throughout my early years obsessed with Harley Reid.
Come on, Abs. Luckily, your taste has improved
God.
since Nick Carter. Jesus
I'm
Christ.
blushing.
Does Keegs know this at all?
No. But he'll get home and there will be a Harley Reid poster.
He is a beautiful man, Keegs,
yes,
by the way.
he is.
He's
yes.
a beautiful man. But my question I want to ask you guys is Harley Reid tonight, Channel 7 is on Talking Footy, which is very exciting because I think everybody across the football world in Australia will have a question that they want to pose to this young kid. So my question to you guys, if you had a one-on-one sit down with Harley Reid, what would be the number one question that you would pose to him? I've got so many, right? But the one that most people would probably want to know, and what a lot of West Coast fans and supporters would want to know, how committed are you to the West Coast Eagles? Are you thinking, I want to be a one-club player. I want to be here for the next 15, 16, 17 years, and I want to drive greatness. I want to bring us back from the brink, and I want to ultimately captain the club. I don't know, I want to win a flag with the club.
Yep.
Or there was an interview with him at ABC, and he did openly and honestly speak about being homesick. I've never lived out of home. I miss my sister's birthday. I spent my birthday on my own over in Perth. And I love him for doing that. Like, I love him for actually speaking his truth. So what question would you ask Harley Reid?
What driving force behind your decision to stay, or what do you need from us, West Coast? As in West Coast asking this, what do you need from us to help you to stay and remain in Perth for the next 10 to 15 years? So, yes, home. We all know he's going to be homesick. So that's going to be, are you homesick? Yes. Do you want to see your family? Yes. But what can West Coast do to keep you at that club for the next 15 years? That's right. Whether that is, every month fly my family over for a week, whatever it is. But what?
Just not business class. Everyone gets sensitive about West Coast and business class.
But it's just, what do you need from West Coast to enable you to stay there for the next 15 years?
Is there a player that you have seen across your career, or even as a fan loving the game going up? Is there one player that reminds you of, or Harley Reid reminds you of?
Well, I mean, obviously the number one is Dustin Martin, everyone always refers to. I actually think, and one of my best mates are over there, who is a Melbourne-born boy who then is now living in Perth, Luke Shuey, old captain Footy Club, probably his mentor over there, which I know he's done a lot of work with him. But he's a perfect example. He was kind of that built like Harley, loved fend off around the middle, could go forward, kick a goal, obviously won a Norm Smith. So we know what a good player he is. So I think Harley really attaches himself to Luke,
That's a good one,
finds out the lifestyle over there.
Yeah.
What does he love about Perth? I mean, obviously Luke met a Perth girl, lovely Danny, but just really Luke should, and I think he is, just under his wing, this is what the Perth life can offer you. This is what life in WA can offer you. And the footy club's a great footy club. I know it's a great environment over
Mm.
there, but we can really nurture you and bring you in. And I've now been here for 15, 20 years, and he's never going to leave.
That's a really good example.
That's what if I was West Coast, that's what I would be doing, is trying to find Perth's most eligible girls and say, can we introduce you to someone like that, like
Yes.
Luke and Danny, and then
Yeah.
you're there long
Well,
term.
he does have a girlfriend in Jasmine Dersma.
That's
There you
true.
go, yes.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Then go and recruit her.
Yes.
Get her to
Daisy
play for the
Pearce,
West
knock,
Coast
knock.
Eagles. Simple as that.
Yeah.
If I was to ask him one thing, it would be, I don't think it's a question if, it's when he will be the best player in the game.
Yep.
So I'd ask him that, is how long do you think until you are the best player in the game? Because it's not an if question for me. He's played 7 games, and it's not out of the realms that we're talking about him as an All-Australian squad member by the end of the year, potentially, if things keep going the right way. How long until you think you're the best player in the game?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you. You've seen enough to know now that he will be, obviously injuries aside, touch wood, bar, all that stuff. He has shown enough in his first 7 or 8 games that he's going to be the best player. I mean, the things he does is players dream of doing.
He's special.
He is special. I mean, look at your
Oh
eyes.
my God.
Absolutely
She's
glint.
gone on Nick Carter on us again. Jeez. Everybody.
I agree with you. He's just everyone's in awe of watching him. His highlight reel is already unbelievable.
And the way that he's handling the pressure. We were all asking the question throughout the preseason. He was front page, he was back page, he was middle page of the West Australian every single day. Is this kid going to step up? And is he going to, I guess, just take it on? Or is it going to be overwhelming? And is it going to hinder his performance? But the way that he has just embraced it.
Seems like he loves it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can see the interview after the game on the weekend. He kind of, when Kath Loughnan was asking questions, he kind of shies away, and he's still a shy kid at heart. And Jake
19.
Waterman was there next to him interviewing him, and it was great because he kept trying to deflect it back to Jake, and you could see he's got his hands on his collar, and then he kind of tucks him away. He's kind of still that nervous energy, which I love, because he's not an 18, 19-year-old kid who's the best player in his age group in Australia right now, but he's not an arrogant kid. He's not coming in going, I'm this, I'm that, I want to be this, I want to be that. You could tell he's just still that nervous energy around, but he just loves footy and loves playing, and he's putting on a show.
Well, that's it for us.
I could keep going if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. And is that it for you for a couple of weeks?
Couple of weeks, yes. That's it for me. I'll be
Good
back
luck.
in June. Yeah, thank you.
Can't wait.
Unbelievable.
You'll be able to track Zachar as well if you're interested in his Boulder, Colorado results.
Yes, you can.
Will you let us know your number?
I'll let you know. Yep, I'll put it on my Instagram.
Good. We'll be back next week.
Absolutely.
Abs, you just have another weekend of domination and renovating and all the things that you do in your life.
Thank you. Being a cat mum.
More videos, please.
More Backstreet Boys as well. Daisy Thomas is back tomorrow. Heatshaw as well. And this could be very, very interesting. If you thought that Daisy and Heater were loose, Jacob Gaynor, who is the Giants' social media guru, but been behind some of the funniest stuff this year, is going to be on the show. You've got to tune in tomorrow, because Lord knows where that thing could go. Until next time, thanks for being with us on Footy Talk.